awake? Yes. I saw a lot of coffee being shipped in. So everybody should be awake. Thank you so much. Everybody knows who she is, right? Yes. Not only is she the queen of Philadelphia, she is the queen of the world. And it's been a whirlwind for you, obviously. And it is a pleasure for you all to be here, to be able to sit down and talk with her and hear her story and talk about the things that she's done, because she's done quite a bit. You know, a gold medal as a player, Olympian gold medal as a player, as a coach, and a two-time national champion women's basketball. It's an awesome, awesome feat, things that she's done all of her life, touching people. And when you touch people, good things come out of that. And so we're going to talk with Dawn and the things you did as an athlete, a young athlete, and then eventually we'll talk about some people that influenced you.
All right. I grew up right here in North Philly, 25th and Diamond, in housing projects called the Raymond Rosen Housing Projects. And everybody that grew up in the projects, you know, we felt like we were living on top of the world. Everybody outside of the projects thought that we were living in a place that that was deemed for, you know, just a forgotten world. And within our projects, I grew up with both parents, very, very disciplined. Back in the day, they call it discipline now, they call it strict. Back in the day. My mother is a faithful woman, praying woman, a woman that I find myself being more like today. Now that I'm a little bit older, but when I was younger, you know, my mom used to embarrass us as children because she had a way of life. It was her rules, and we had to follow them. But I embrace them now because I am my mother's child. As I coach, I can hear some of the things that I say to our players, and they're just innately a part of who I am now. But I grew up playing all different types of sports: tackle football, baseball, softball. You know, it has to still be there. Like, we have this big field. It was like row homes, and they were high rises, and it was circular. So the row homes would be like this almost semicircle to the high rises that overlook the big field. And in the big field, you had a softball field, you had a baseball field, you had a basketball court, and then you had all this space. So with this space, we used to get a 5-gallon gallon of paint, and we would paint like a track. So we had our own little Olympics. You know, the lines weren't straight. But you get it. Like, we would race, we would run relay races. We were really resourceful in the projects. And my father was a carpenter. Like, if anybody needed like wooden fences, like he used to just have a pencil. Like, he didn't have this, he had a saw, and they would be the straightest, most, and our block was considered, you know, we would put our block up against any, like you see it in all the magazines, and like, our block was manicured, the lawns. We had this mean block captain. Her name was Mrs. Jones, right? Mrs. Jones lived in our block. Her grandchildren lived in the next block. She would not let her grandchildren into our block because they would come in and run across the lawns, and she would curse them out. So, I mean, I grew up in a place that created incredible values. You know, like, our neighborhood, the adults ran the entire neighborhood. Like, you would not offend any adult in our neighborhood, or they would be able to. My mother gave them the right to do whatever is necessary to make sure that we behave in the proper way. So that's where I got my discipline from. That's where I got, who I am today. The foundation was laid a long, long, long time ago, and I just tap into that, that moral compass that was established when I was a kid.
And we talk about discipline, and you say, but when we talk about discipline and growing up and having that discipline, obviously you carried that on into your career as a coach. How much do you think you pull on that strong, disciplined mind in your coaching?
A lot. I mean, I have 2 life mottos. Okay, one is you have to do what you don't want to do to get what you want. It's a funny place. Y'all are probably, maybe not. Y'all might be able to get where I got that life motto from. Y'all remember the house parties? House party 1, 2, 3. Well, house party 2, had that valuable lesson. I was over in Segovia, Spain, right? And I was playing professionally, and we had a day off, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna make this a movie day. So I'm gonna watch the house parties, VHSs. So I watched House Party, and understand I was in Segovia, Spain, because I had a dream of being an Olympian. So when I got cut from the 1992 Olympic Games, they told me 2 things. One, I was too short. Well, they put somebody on the team that was shorter than me, so it couldn't have been that. And then 2, I didn't have enough international experience. So packed my bags, went over and got some international experience, and found myself in Segovia, Spain, watching the house parties, and then house party 2. And I lived out of the suitcase every day because I just didn't like it. But it was when Kid and Play, they were in college and they were going to parties, and the professor told them that you have to do what you don't want to do to get what you want. And it made sense for me. Like, I was there doing what I didn't want to do, which was be in a foreign country to become an Olympian, because that's what I wanted to do. So that's one of my life mottos. And the other one is, the disciplined person can do anything. Anything. And I just part way that to our team. I don't beat them over the head with it, but there are just things that I won't let go. Like, and also look, sound, and feel. Like I gotta. That's my moral compass. Look, sound, feel. Something looks, sound, or feels right, you react to it with good, positive reinforcements. If something looks, sound, or feels wrong, you act on it immediately. And that's how I coach. You can see it, your star player, is cutting corners. We got to go at her. You go at her, the rest of them will fall in line. But, the other ones as well. Like, I don't let anything, if I feel like something could impact other people or our championship, I act quickly. And I don't let anything go. There's not anything. There are battles that, you as a coach, you look at it and you see it, do I fight this one today? Some of them is yes and no. Not if it really impacts, the core value of your team. You don't let go. You don't let go. Some young people, you have to meet them where they are. Some of them don't come to you with it all together. They don't. A lot of them don't. So, I'm probably lucky in that probably a third of our team came to us that had incredible values. And how do you know that? How do you judge that? Anybody know how you judge that?
Recruiting trip.
Huh?
I judge off a recruiting trip. Talking to parents, families.
Boom, parents. Parents. That's how you judge it. Parents. Is how they respond to their parents. I'm at a place in my career now, seriously, like I didn't really care When I started at Temple, like that was 22 years ago. I didn't care. We needed talent. You know, I thought I was young enough to handle any type of person because I felt like I had the magic touch. If I give them the attention that they needed, you know, I could flip them a little bit. I could change behaviors. Now I really look at the parenting, the parent and child relationship, because it's important. If they respect their parents, you got a really good shot at helping them. If they don't, they can destroy your team. It doesn't matter how talented they are. If they're not going to respect you or their parents, they're going to be a detriment to your team. So I am, you know, I'm just at that place, and I would turn down a high level recruit if they are disrespectful to their parents.
Good to know. And that brings me to a question too, when you talk about developing kids. And so some people say that your level of coaching should be the same for everybody. But you touched on it a little bit about meeting people halfway sometimes. And some will come already ready, but then some will need that extra. How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, there's a number of ways. You know, one is as a coaching staff, like it's 4 of us. So what we do at South Carolina is we divvy up. If we have 15 players, each assistant coach would take 5 players, and it's their job to make sure that one, you are the biggest voices in their heads. They text them, you know, throughout the week. Text them after the game, whether they played a whole lot or little, just to check in with them. And then for me, I just kind of go through everyone, and I kind of hit what's needed. But I'm the one that's responsible for the parents. Like I am in contact with the parents. Like we have monthly parents Zoom calls just to check in to make sure everything's going well. And we tackle it from that vantage point. Like I get all the information from all the meetings that our assistant coaches have, and they might just nudge me and say, hey, you might want to check on player X, you know, because she's got a rough week. 3 exams, okay, broke up with a boyfriend, that type of stuff. You really have to be in tune with who they are, what they're about, where they're spending their time. I mean, you can find out on social media. They tell you everything. So we're conscious of, you know, all the aspects of their lives. We don't, you know, I mean, they'll probably consider us like nagging people, but I think for our comfort, yeah.
They say you're doing too much.
Yeah. But it helps us. It gives us peace of mind, and also it gives us a barometer of where they are in their lives, because we can be the best version of ourselves when we know. When we're not in the know, we're guessing and we're assuming, and that's not really a good place to be, especially when you're dealing with young people. You have to be in their lives. You got to carve out a space to be in their lives, because you know, things are, you know, pretty fragile. They act like they got it going on and they have everything under control. But sometimes, again, mental illness is a real thing. Like it's more prevalent in today's world with young people than anything. And if you can meet them where they are, they'll eventually tell you how they're doing and where you can help them. And more they're looking for that. More and more they are looking for that person or that group of people that can help them, and we want to make sure as coaches we are that group of people.
That's so profound too, Dawn. You know, when we talk about what's going on in America today, we've gone through the pandemic, we've gone through people losing their lives to COVID, and mental health is very, very important right now. And as coaches, we are interacting with these young people, and they have so many feelings going on and anxieties and things like that. And sometimes we have to step off a little bit and understand what they're going through. And I think everyone got a rubber band today. Is that correct? And so why don't you tell us a little bit about the rubber band and why you use the rubber band.
Well, I don't use the rubber band anymore. I used it when I was a player. I had a difficult time with turning the ball over. I did, I would try different things. I was more creative on the basketball court, more than any part of my life. It was a place that I felt like just I can be someone other than I really am, because I'm a homebody. I like being at home. I like just chilling. But on the court, I'm this other person. I'm just like creative. I like to do certain things. And then when I got to college, I averaged about 5 turnovers in my freshman year. But I actually picked this up before I went to college, because my favorite player of all time is Maurice Cheeks. Sixers, point guard, right?
Yeah.
So Maurice Cheeks wore a rubber band. And he didn't necessarily say why he was wearing a rubber band, but I started wearing a rubber band, and I would pop myself when I turned the ball over. So just as a disciplinarian tool that I use, and then once I got my turnovers under control, I only popped it when I thought it was my mistake, not somebody bumping. So it was just a disciplinarian tool, and they gave me this rubber band today, but I keep some type of rubber band, I have this hair tie that I usually keep on my wrist as just sort of a reminder. I don't pop myself anymore. I'm getting of age. I can't bruise myself. I bruise very easily.
That's something, because kids are going through some things, and sometimes young kids will think that their identity is through their performance, whether it's on the field or on the court, that they identify with their performance. Well, nobody has a perfect day or a perfect performance, so sometimes we need some of those physical reminders to remind us to come back to reality, like that it's not that much, let's not think too much into it, let's be ourselves. And I have a reminder. Okay, go ahead.
Let me just speak on the mental health aspect. Something that we do at South Carolina too now, like probably the last 7-8 years. The moment that any of our newcomers come on campus, freshmen, transfers, we actually make it mandatory for them to speak to one of our psychologists. Just an introductory meeting. And a lot of them have reservations about speaking to a psychologist, because that stigma is real, but it is mandatory. We make them do that. Just one time, because when you come to college, it really is a crash course of newness, of socially, athletically, academically. It's a crash course of all new stuff. You meet different people, and sometimes life, it's a crash course. It comes all together, and it throws off your equilibrium. So, or you have a death in the family, or you break up with a significant other, and you really don't know how to pull yourself out of it. So if they've already had that introductory meeting, it might be okay for them to go see this person again when they're going through it. Now, as coaches, you got a degree in psychology?
Well, I'm getting my PhD in psychology.
Oh, see, okay. Yes. But coach is an expert in it. I'm not an expert in it, so I gotta go get the experts. Because I think I'm an expert in coaching, like in basketball. I know that, but I don't know psychology. I've had experiences as a coach to help young people, but I don't have the correct defense mechanisms for them. Now I know what it is for me. I know how to, I know how to navigate through that for me, because life has taught me that. But as an 18-year-old, you don't have enough life experiences to help you through some trying times. So it's really important for them to meet the experts first, so they can see it's okay. It's just another person. Like I actually went to a meeting, a session with one of our players this year, because the stigma was like, oh, I was like, no, I'll go with you. And we went and we just talked. It was like a normal conversation. You're just giving it to somebody else that can actually help. And she felt much better after leaving. It wasn't as, wasn't as traumatic as she was, as she was thinking. And it was more of like, I don't want to tell my parents, because again, the parents have this stigma about just mental health. It's nothing. It's quite abnormal not to actually address some of the things that are happening. Because if you don't have the answers, do you know why? Do you know why you're not playing well? No. She was doing all the things that she normally does. I mean, because she's one that really, is in the gym before, after, in between, and she can't quite get it. Now, I can tell her some things, like I usually do, but sometimes hearing it from somebody else, it just confirms, like, here's some other stuff that I can do, visualization, all types of things that will help them just in the moment deal with some things. So it's important that you meet your players where they are, because they have goals, they have lofty goals. But if you already up here with them, they don't really understand the journey, what it takes to get there. So you got to meet them where they are to take them where they want to go.
Yeah, and you talk about that, and I'm listening to you talk about going to a meeting, a session with your player. That takes a lot of trust and relationships with coaches and their athletes. You won 2 national championships. They trust you. What kinds of things do you do as a coach to bring on that feeling of trust from your student athletes?
I mean, it's time spent with them. Like it's a full-time job. It is. They believe in you. It's being a dream merchant. Being a dream merchant isn't just the results of winning the national championship or the results of them being, becoming an All-American. It's the journey. It's the hardships are the most important things. Players want to know that you're there for them, on their darkest day. Like I tell, when we recruit, I tell them, like, for most of your career, it's probably going to be some good stuff, like great experiences, but it's who you want to spend your time with, looking across, or you're feeling some type of way, 3 o'clock in the morning, who you can text or who you can FaceTime. Like, I want you to think about those times, because as recruiters, we're going to roll out the red carpet. We're going to tell you how good, Temple University is, and all the people and the buildings and all this stuff that we have, right? No one's thinking about stuff when they're going through some things. It's the people and who you want to give yourself to is really important. They can't go there. Like, young people can't go to dark places until they're already there. So I'm a worst case scenario. Like, it's a fault of mine. But I have to give them what the worst case scenario could be, right? You got to paint that picture for them, because we're used to painting the great picture of, oh, we're great, we can handle anything, we're good, we got these facilities, we give you laptops, we give you nice gear, we give you all of these things, and then they have a dark day. They got these things, but those things can't comfort you in those times. It's going to be the coach, the person, the human being that's going to be the one that's going to help carry you through those dark moments. And I do that with everything. Like our end of the year meeting with our players, not this year, last year. We had no one jump into the transfer portal, and I was really surprised. Like, I actually almost wanted somebody to jump in there. Because we had 16, we ended up having 16 players, right? And probably 11 or 12 of them were like McDonald's All-Americans. Like, they just the cream of the crop. So, and to manage 16 players is really hard. So, again, I gave them the worst case scenarios to some of them. I'm just like, worst case scenario, you're not gonna play. Okay, you might not even get reps in practice. You might be in the same situation that you were just in, where if you weren't happy with your role for our team, it could be just that or worse or better. I did say or better. But none of them, took the bait, so to speak. And then we ended up, going through this year. Like, some of them were very unhappy with their role on our team, on our championship team. But it's constant reminders all through the year. Like, I always reminded them, you remember that meeting we had last spring? Yes, well, you keep fast forwarding, through the fall, right? Through the winter, and through, the championship season. And I just had to remind them. And then at the end, probably 6 weeks from the end of the season, I'm just like, we have to keep the main thing. And the main thing at that point was winning the national championship. So we try to, dispel, whatever is in their heads about transferring, because I know it comes up during the year, during the season. I'm not going to be here this year. You hear rumblings of players talking. As coaches too. Just want to give you this. You need a mole on your team. Okay? You need a mole. You do. It's not. It's just somebody that really wants to win and wants everything to run smoothly. It's not a tattletale. It's not you going against your teammate. It's for the culture. It's for, the chemistry, to keep everything running smoothly. So you hear rumblings of it. So when I don't go back to that player and like, oh, here you talking about transferring. Nope. I say you keep the main thing. Don't get distracted. The end of the year can take care of itself. In our end of the year meeting, we can take care of everything that's on your mind. So just compartmentalize. Wait till the end of the year. Right now, let's keep the main thing. And then during our end of the year meetings, we had about 4 or 5 people transfer, which is fine. I'm good. I am, I consider myself a dream merchant. Not a selfish one in that your dreams come true because you're gonna be at South Carolina. No, it doesn't. Your happiness and where you're able, like, I love my players enough to allow them to leave. I love my players enough to allow them to be uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. And as I coach, you've coached a lot of years, but as the more and more I coach, I find that parents don't want their kids to feel what they felt growing up. They want to shield them from hurting, from being uncomfortable, right? And their children, their daughters, they measure everybody to how their parents love them. You can't. Like, I had, again, end of the year meeting. Don't measure me up against your parents. I'm never gonna look that good in your eyes. I'm never gonna do it. So don't do it. I love you enough to allow you to be uncomfortable. So if you have a bad game, if you have a bad week, if you have a bad season, I'm okay with that. Let's fix it so it doesn't repeat itself. I'm okay with that. Like, you have to be okay as coaches to allow your players a space to be uncomfortable, to fail, so to speak. And then you have to build them back up, and you have to give them mechanisms for them to overcome. Like, we got players they're gonna be pros next year, and the year after, and the year after. They can't. Young people, they really can't see dark days. They can't. They only look at themselves as, you're invincible and I'm great, right? They only see that. So when they're actually have to deal with some strife in their life and their careers, they really don't know how to handle it. And they look to their parents, and the parents they're just going to help them get through. They're going to do whatever they need to do for their kids not to feel what they're feeling. And like me, I'm like, I want them to soak in it and bask in it, so you can fight your way out of those things. And it's probably not the popular way. It's the life way though. That's life. Life happens in a way that it's gonna throw you through some loops, and you gotta figure out how to navigate through that and still come out on top.
And that's why the C-team player is going to be the next All-American, and those baby goggles are distorted. So, and young people, again, want everything to be rosy and bright, and we're like, boy, you're not tough. But if you say that, then they go to the AD and say something negative. You're like, toughen up, touch that line. Oh my God, they picked on me today. So kids are not like they used to be. And you talk about, and we're here listening to Dawn Staley, and she is definitely a role model for quite a number of us. And you've done some things to just open the doors for so many. And you're talking about coaching and how can we talk about the things we do and the lives we touch and the doors we open for young men and women with their dreams and their goals and getting them to places. You did something very special that touched me, and I'm not a 12-year-old, obviously, but I love you, Dawn Staley, and you're a role model for me, and you did something. You cut a piece of your championship neck, and I carry this with me everywhere I go. Wow. And why don't you tell the audience why you did that?
When I 2 years before we won our first national championship, Carolyn Peck, who was the first black female coach to win a national championship, she gave me a piece of her national championship net, and she told me, when you win your national championship, one, I want you to return my piece of the net. And two, I want you to do the same for another black coach. Wow. Right? So for a few years, I didn't know which black coach to give my piece of the net to. And I actually wanted her to help me find the person, because obviously she got the magic touch. She chose me. So for years we could not figure out who to give it to. So I was actually talking to a reporter. He was doing a diary on our team last year, and he asked me who did I give my piece of the net to, and I was like, I couldn't find anyone. Maybe I keep it myself, and then we win another one. But I said, you know what? I said, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give it to, every black Division I head coach. And then some time elapsed, and I forgot to do it though, really. And he had a follow-up call, and he was like, "What did you do it?" And then I had to just, act. And I just thought, giving those black coaches something tangible to hold on to. Now, obviously, I do realize that not all of them will win a national championship, but winning a national championship can be, coaching the first generation graduate that's considered, you know, as big as a national championship. It could be on one of your dark days of, you know, you got a player that is experiencing, you know, a hardship that you helped them through. That piece of nylon, you know, is representative of what, you know, of hard work, of dedication, of being that person that will help another person through whatever it is they're going through. And I just thought it was pretty cool to share that with other coaches who look like me, who will struggle like me. I'm not a, you know, and some people may take offense to why didn't you give it to white coaches, or, I mean, I am a black coach, okay, and black coaches don't get as many opportunities as everybody else. You know, women especially, men, y'all got no shot at being a Division I head coach, really, because they're not hiring. I think the popular thing right now is to hire a black female coach, and I want them to do great. I do. I want them to do great because it creates opportunities for other females, and I just felt like it was a great gesture. It was something that was super important to me. Like in those 2 years that I was, you know, in the mix of trying to win a national championship, I carried it in my wallet everywhere I went. I would pull it out just to look at it, just to touch it, put it back, and keep it moving. And it gave me great pride to be able to return it and to share it with other people. So I you know, Coach, you were a recipient of a piece of the net, and I think we gave out like 70 pieces. Now that we won our second national championship, I said I was gonna give it to men, okay, black men, and black journalists, because we're not in these spaces. Like we're not in the spaces of giving perspective, and I'm not saying that it has to be, you know, like a black takeover. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying get into some rooms where there's not a different perspective. It doesn't have to be right. It just has to be different. Just different. We can grow and learn when there's a difference of perspectives in rooms that, you know, that usually aren't. And you wouldn't believe how many people that have contacted me and contacted our sports media person, our assistant coaches, wanting a piece of that net. So I am going to get that out to them, because I think it's you know, it's hope. It's a beacon of hope that they can realize their dreams in the space and the professions that they're in.
Thank you. And, you know, after a hard
Into my perspective on managing and the relationship with parents in a college program especially, but I'm sure everyone in this room is like, oh, parents. So can you hit on it, you talked about your Zoom call, and I was like, what? So taking notes, and then you talked a little bit about just kind of, if you can dive deeper into what that may look like and sound like, and where the boundary is for you and how you manage that, especially in a college program, but also for everyone in the room that is also like parents.
Yeah, you can't avoid the parents. They're part of the equation. They're a big part of it. That's who your players go to. They hear it all. So we include it. We're inclusive of the parents. Right? They feel better about it. They do. Does it take a lot of time? Yep. But what you're doing is protecting your peace. That's what I have to protect my peace. I have to include them into the equation. We do monthly Zoom calls, and they're not like, you know, there's not the space to complain or whatever. It's a space for us to kind of give them, like one of the first Zoom meetings, and we just started this about 2 years ago, was about COVID, like how we're going to deal with COVID and what things that we're going to do. We had our our team doctor on there just explaining if we did an international trip, so we wanted to just make sure that they understood that, right? And then the next month, so that's September, right? And then October, we actually set up, NIL is very prevalent, so we had a financial group come on and just kind of explain what happens in our life, where they can put their money, what they need to do with their money. They actually like that one. And then November is a pretty good one. It is telling their parents pretty much how the season may go for their daughters. Like, again, remember those 12 McDonald's All-Americans? Like, there's not room enough to play 16 nor 12, right? So we told them that you and your daughter are going to be faced with something that you've never experienced. That is your daughter not playing, or playing a little bit, or playing a lot. And what they're going to do is they're going to call you, and they're going to complain, right? So, and we have to explain to them, when they're calling you and complaining, they just want you to be parents. They don't want you to fight or call the coaches and fix it, okay? But that's okay too, because I don't mind communication with the parents. Because the more you communicate with them, the more you give them an understanding of how things are, and you're giving them a glimpse of how the journey and the process works, okay? Because we didn't force them to sign on the dotted line. Again, I'm a worst case scenario. Like we had the #1 recruiting class in 2019, right? And we ended up getting the #1 recruiting class in 2021, right? So 2021, you got to know that you got at least 2 years with the 2019. And they were pretty good, So you have to explain all of this is before they signed on the dotted line. Like I give it to them all so you can make a informed decision about it. Now what we do at South Carolina is it's just that. Like we run it pretty good. We keep the lines of communication open. The parents, they talk to me all the time. So you're just setting them up to feel real good about keeping the lines of communication open. Now, some parents do take that as, hey, my daughter, how can she get on the floor, right? All of our practices are open to the parents. All of them. Open. Come on. Come check it out. Because it's not like, for us, and a lot has to do with playing time. It's the biggest part of what we have to deal with. But when they come to practice and see how their daughters perform, I mean, I don't mind sharing our practices with them as well, so they can actually see what's happening. Because it doesn't do me any good to sit an All-American on the bench just because, doesn't help the situation. And just throughout, we keep them informed with everything that's going on in the program. So at the end of the day, they know. And once you've shared with them the information, they get it. They get it. I mean, and then you probably don't have to deal with 16 sets of parents because most of them get it. Maybe 4 or 5 of them you're gonna have to deal with, in another conversation. But the more you involve them, the more, you can get to a point too where I got to a point not last year, maybe a few years ago, where I told the parent I have to cut you off. I did. I said, I got to cut you off. I'm just going to speak to your daughter. Because it crossed the line. When parents start talking about, other members of the team, I'm not going to have that discussion with you. I'm only going to talk to you about your daughter and how she fits in and what's happening. And that's sometimes a hard conversation, for us coaches to have. But again, protect your peace.
ask you a professional question that I feel like I hate because people ask me this. I'm a Division II head coach. Say, are you going to go to the next level? And I find that to be a little insulting, but I'm also a huge Philadelphia sports fan. So I have to just ask you, and you've broken so many barriers for women. Have you ever thought about coaching the next level? Have you thought about coaching men? Have you thought about WNBA, or is South Carolina for you?
It's a good question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
It's the Philadelphia sports fan, I had to do
yeah,
it.
right. No, like no part of me has ever wanted to coach professionally. It's a weird dynamic. Like my draw is young people and being able to impact young people at this level, so we can preserve the WNBA. So when a player that comes from a program where I'm coaching, they'll have a really good understanding of what to do at the next level and to make sure they take care of our league, okay? And then let me just explain too. I did interview for the Portland Trailblazers job, right? And I just did it for the hell of it. I mean, just to see, just really to see what it's all about. And I did not want it to be, them checking the box. I didn't want it to be that, and it didn't feel like that. Like it felt like it was a Zoom call, and I was in the room with everybody, and they're firing off questions. A lot of it was analytics, and we do a little bit of it on our level, but they do a whole lot of it. It was the general manager, vice president. It was the strength coach. It was everybody. Like the NBA, they have so many people, and there's so many aspects of coaching at that level. You have much more than you have on a collegiate level. I did get a little itch, and I look at the game a little bit differently now, that the NBA game, now that I had the interview, because I want to see, I actually project what adjustments I would make in this situation. How are they playing pick and roll action? Because that's a lot of what they do on the next level. But no, still, I get back to my equilibrium, and this is where I am. This is kind of what I like. I like being that dream merchant for younger people. Now the league is probably getting younger and younger and younger too, but. No, they asked me about how do you coach a superstar? I was like, I coach superstars at my level, but millionaire superstars. And I just said, I told them, for me the most important people, they're all important, but the most important people are the people that sit on the bench. Like if you could get them to buy into their roles and make them feel important, everything else will run smoothly. And that's kind of how I do here. Like we got superstars, we got national player of the years on our team, and I feel sometimes I don't really give those players enough attention because I'm so in tune to what's happening on the other end of the bench, and making sure, because they got goals and dreams, and I want to make sure they're okay. Because I know, if you got a top level player, they're top level for a reason because they got their stuff together. So I want to make sure, some coach, I got a podcast, and I had a coach on, Sue Inquist. Sue Inquist is a softball, a genius. She's been a part of 11 national championships. So she breaks her team down into thirds: top third, middle third, bottom third. Right? She said, "I don't coach the bottom third." That's what she said. I don't coach the bottom third. The middle third, you got to spend some time because they can either go left or right. They can. And for me, it's hard for me not to coach the bottom third. Like I actually really dig the bottom third because there's so much more that they can learn and grow. And I probably concentrate too much there and not give enough in other places. But I know if we get them right, it just moves up. So, you know, back to your question, no, I like being at the collegiate level.
Fortunately, I feel like Coach Staley, we could probably listen to you for a couple of hours. But we really appreciate you doing this for us. You know, obviously it was a big lift for you to be able to come and do this with your schedule, so we sincerely appreciate the opportunity to have you here. We have a couple of gifts for both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We actually have some special guests from a middle school in the area that are going to be coming in for Dawn to speak to for a few moments. So if everyone wants to move to the next session, they'll start in just a couple of minutes. That would be great. Yeah.